Alrighty, so my name is Jonathan Peterson, and today I'm going to just be talking about my internship experience um, with the responsibilities and all the things that I've learned, as well as my recommendations for future students who may or may not choose to go with this group. So just quickly about me. I walked in December at BYU, Idaho, and then I've been doing my internship now. My major is marriage and family studies with a clinical emphasis. I want to get my master's in general psychology and then also go on and get my PhD in clinical psychology. I eventually want to work with the VA and work with veterans and their families and be able to help them out through their struggles that they may have. So that's pretty much about me. How did I find this internship? So my professor, I had a professor I took a class from, and he actually contacted me through email, kind of just letting me know about the opportunity of interning with this group. And it was actually for working with this group at the Utah State Capitol. I didn't actually get that specific internship. However, they contacted me after our interview process and they were like, hey, we were really impressed with you. So we would love for you to be one of our online interns. And I said, sure. It sounded like a really interesting opportunity and I would be able to learn a lot more. Uh, so I decided, yeah, it's something I wanted to do. And so I took it and I was able to learn a lot from it. So my responsibilities for this internship pretty much started out every Monday. We had to post articles on the World Family News' website for Tuesday. So I would post things on Monday, schedule them for a Tuesday release, and pretty much the articles that we were looking for were articles that um, mostly of policies and laws and just things going around in the world that can be negatively impacting families around the world. And so after doing that, the rest of my week, I mainly focused on writing uh, these review papers for the United Nations. They're actually called the Universal Periodic Review. And pretty much these reports just kind of look through all the laws of certain countries that are on the Human Rights Council and stuff. And they kind of look into them and make sure that they are upholding human rights. And the two countries that we mainly focused on were the Islamic Republic of Iran and Kazakhstan. And so we mainly focused on those. And pretty much what the UPR is just this process of looking into these countries, like I said before, making sure that these countries are fulfilling their human right obligations that they've told the UN that they would do. And so our main desire for this whole process is to make sure that everyone in these countries are having their human rights um, fully enforced, that they're not being like stepped on and not taken care of or not even like looked into at all. And so this whole process is just making sure that there are no violations in these countries that have said that they will take care of their people's human rights. And there's not really any other group that really does this besides the UPR, the Universal Periodic Review. And so those reports I focused a lot of my time on. they also, the whole group that I've been working with, they also had this idea of putting these little lessons on their website, and um, just for anyone who accesses their website, just to kind of like teaching them about families and also things going on in the world that are impacting families, things of that sort. And so I would just kind of proofread and edit these lessons just to make sure that they were in depth, but not too in depth that a lot of like the average person would look at them and be like, ah, that's too much for me to read or too much for me to do. And so those are the main things that I would focus on with this whole internship. And how did I benefit the site that I served? Through the whole periodic review, writing these reports, there was a ton of research, for the the actual countries, laws, and regulations. Um, and the thing that we mostly looked into with this whole universal periodic review was third party reproduction rights as well as surrogacy rights and laws in these countries. Um, and so through this whole thing, we just put a lot of work into that. And there was even one time that I remember where my supervisor was just drowning in things to do. She had, these reports that I would send her, and she'd look over them, and she had other things other people were sending her as well. Um, and so we were kind of talking one day, and she was just like, "Yeah, it might not be for a little while that we might start the second report for Kazakhstan." And I was just like, I can start it on my own. Like I feel like I have the gist of this down, the basic concept of what we're supposed to be doing and things of that sort. And so she was like, "Oh, that's great." So I would say I benefited by taking a good amount of stress off of my supervisor by doing even something as some may see as small as like starting a report for something. But that was the main event that I would say that I would say I really benefited the site. I feel like I always contributed to the site, but that was one particular moment where I like kind of I took the reins and I was like, I got this. Like I can do this. How did I benefit personally from this experience? Right there is one of my favorite quotes from Socrates, and it's kind of a quote that I always try to make sure that I um, always keep in my mind, because there's a lot of instances where we may think just because we have a lot of knowledge in something that we cannot be taught anymore, and that is wrong. There's always instances where you can learn something new, something valuable, a different point of view, things of that sort. And I would say that's something I really learned from this whole experience that I really benefited from, was the knowledge that I gained from all the research, all the eye-opening statistics, firsthand accounts that I looked into for people who did surrogacy, things of that sort. And beforehand, I wouldn't say I was completely ignorant to third party reproduction and surrogacy. However, I was a little bit more ignorant to the whole aspect of it being a huge human rights violation. In a lot of countries, it is, unfortunately. And so, this whole experience opened my eyes to this whole new meaning of what these things are. Um, and it's it was something that beforehand, like I said, I didn't really think of as something that infringed on people's rights, but being able to in-depthly look at this, to be able to dissect the whole situation, I was able to see how negatively it really affects people. And so I would say that's the one of the main things that I really benefited from this whole experience. And now because of the knowledge that I gained, that I benefited from, I'm able to show that to others and kind of like show them like, hey, like, this is really a problem. We need to look at this more seriously. And so that's something that I've really benefited from, and hopefully others can benefit from me as well in the future. So, connections in my coursework throughout BYU Idaho and this internship. Um, there's a good amount of connections between the two. I'm going to really focus, though, on the aspect of protecting others and standing up for them. That's always been something that I've learned through, I wouldn't say every single one of my classes, but I would say a lot of my classes, especially learning more about like social problems and things of that sort, has always been to, like stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves. And this is something that I learned from this whole periodic review and things that we've done, was how many, especially women, are taken advantage of because of their lack of knowledge for the whole situation. And so for me, that's something that obviously this experience in my internship has made me want to do more of. And also along with that is just how much the family is being attacked on all fronts. This is, like I said before, this is something that I didn't really see as evil. I actually saw it something as like good in a sense, because I'm like, oh, now people who couldn't have babies before now have a child. But there's a lot of downside to that as well, especially in the human rights aspect, with the whole thing, the whole aspect of a child should be able to know like where they come from and like who they came from, really, too. And also, like I said before, women's rights of them being taken advantage of, mostly because a lot of the people doing this will just tell them how much money they can make from it, and a lot of these women are in a lower socioeconomic class. And so they see this as an opportunity to be able to kind of boost their economic status, but they aren't really told all of the negative side effects of it. And so there's a lot of connections that I made, but those were the main ones, was just how much the family's being attacked, and also we need to be able to not only stand up for the family, but also just human rights in general. We need to be able to do that. Would I recommend this site? Yes, I would. Like I've talked through this whole PowerPoint about, is there's so much knowledge you can gain from this if you put the work into it. There, like I said, there was countless hours of research, of reading, and just looking also for statistics, also laws, things of that sort, first-hand accounts. Like it doesn't always just pop up the first time you search Google. And so I would for sure recommend this, but also caution people to make sure to put in the work, because in the end the results pay off and you gain so much knowledge. But yeah, you definitely have to put in the work for this. And if you want to contact this web, or the site for this organization, you can contact the president of the organization, Tori Black, at our email at tblack@unitedfamilies.org. She's usually pretty good with getting back to you really quickly, and she is really, I would say pretty much all of my supervisors that I've had were really good to work with, and were very, they had a lot of interesting insights and new ways of looking at things. So definitely should contact them, and they'll get back to you as soon as possible. And thank you for taking time to look at this PowerPoint, and I hope you guys, whoever is watching this, does make the choice to work with this website and with this organization, because they are amazing.